All right, I'd like to talk about the commandments. And first and foremost, I was praying about what to talk about last week. And I mean, we have the sessions on Saturday, but like Sunday last week, I had gotten three confirmations that I had to talk about commandments. At some point, I found myself almost getting into an argument with Tatanzambi. I was thinking, but I've talked about this before. He reminded me, you've not talked about it here on this channel. You've talked about it elsewhere. Then when I started preparing, I was shown a few new things that I didn't know. So I guess those are the new things that we're going to learn today. All right, let's get into it. The commandments. This is the word command as it is in the scriptures. For the word for commandment, here it's pronounced as mitzvah, but then interestingly, in Kamba language, we have a word that is meow. You don't pronounce the TSV, it's like silent. And meow means commandments or rules or laws. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's the same pronunciation and the same meaning. Those are some of the things that I guess the Most High wanted to show us. When you click onto this root word for meow, you get to the primitive word, which is tavia. Tavia. This is also a word in my Kamba language or Kamba dialect, which is a Bantu dialect. And tavia means to command, to charge, but it's not just like the way a military person might issue a command. It is like the way a parent will tell a child, I'm not going to tell you that again. Or the way an elder will tell, grandchildren, sit down, I give you advice. In my Kamba language, we have a word that says otao. It comes from the word tavia. Otao is like wisdom, it's like life knowledge, it's like instructions. Maybe the closest word in English is the word charge. You're not commanding somebody to go right and left and do this and that, like a soldier would be commanded, but you're giving somebody life's instructions, the way to live, things like that. So that's the word otao, which comes from tavia, and tavia is what is to command. All right, now when we look at the scriptures, where do we see the word command? First in the book of Genesis. And here Tatanzambi commanded Adam, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. Look at the consequence of not keeping the commandment. There always seem to be consequences, good or bad. For in the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die. And then we see it again in Genesis chapter 3, verse 17 to 19. And unto Adam, he said, this is Zambi saying to Adam, because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Here's the consequence. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In sorrow shall you eat of it all the days of life. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face shall you eat bread. So he was not sweating to eat before this. Tatanzambi was just providing it. But now, as a consequence, he had to sweat for his food. Till you return unto the ground, for out of it you are taken, for dust you are, and unto dust you shall return. That's Adam in Eden. He was given commandments. He was given a command on what to do and what not to do. Here is Isaac. Isaac is being told to stay in the promised land. And in Genesis 26, verse 3, it says, sojourn in this land. He's in a place called Gerar. I believe that might be Harare in Zimbabwe. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you for unto you and unto your seed I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swore unto Abraham your father. And I will make your seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto your seed all these countries. And in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws. What I found out here is not just that Abraham kept commandments. Of course, if you're keeping commandments, he was given these commandments by Nzambi. But what I found out was the emphasis here that these are Nzambi's commandments. Notice the way it's repeated from my voice in verse 5, my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws. I mean, 5 times. Whenever you see Tata Nzambi repeating something, he's trying to really make sure you don't miss it. So these are his commandments. They're not our rules or laws that we put in place with our governments. But he says to Isaac here that because Abraham, Isaac's father, kept these commandments, Tata Nzambi is going to do all these things for Isaac, multiply him, give him all the nations, blah, 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 because of what Abraham did. Now let's look at Moses. Moses here is instructing the Bantu, Solele, near the river Jordan. I will encourage all of you later on, read this chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 4. I was reading it, and at some point, in fact, I read chapter 3 before. I would encourage you to do that. Read from chapter 3 and then get into this. I found myself tearing up. And I'll explain why I found myself tearing up. You see, in chapter 3, Moses is told that he's not going to enter the promised land. He's not going to cross this Jordan River. But he has to come and give these people the commandments and then go to Mount Nebo where he's going to die. And I'm thinking, this is after 40 years in the wilderness. He's been instructed, go give these people these commandments, and then you go up the mountain because you're not going to go into the promised land. Anyway, now therefore, hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that you may live and go in and possess the land which the Lord, which Tata Nzambi of your fathers giveth you. Okay? You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish aught from it, that you may keep the commandments of Nzambi, of Elimo your Nzambi, which I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Nzambi has destroyed them from among you. But ye that did cleave unto Nzambi are alive, every one of you, this day. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Nzambi commanded me, that you should do so in the land where you go to possess it. Couple of things that I learned here. Hope you learned some of them and some more too. And please do take notes for the discussion. First of all, they're being told to keep those statutes from verse 1 so that they may live. This is about survival. Okay, and go in and possess the land that was promised to them and their forefathers. Secondly, do not try and change these commandments. Don't add or remove from them. We will discuss in detail about how man's religion has added and diminished from the commandments or onto the commandments. Then in verse 3, some of these guys, some of the Bantu who left Egypt, along the way, They started worshiping this Baal Peor. I did a little bit of research. This was the god of the cleft, the God that you would want to cleave on. That is why verse 4 says, but you did cleave unto your Nzambi. Everybody else who tried to cleave onto that Baal Peor, they were not even alive by the time Moses is giving these instructions at the Jordan River. They were all dead. That's why I said it's a matter of survival. And then last but not least, in verse 5, you have been taught the statutes and judgments. We'll talk about those statutes and judgments. But note that it says there at the end, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Nzambi commanded me, that you should do so. Where? In the land. Statutes and judgments, you will see, are repeated, and these are things that are to be performed specifically for those in the land, those in Africa, those in the promised land. All right, somebody's joined. If you could please mute. Somebody's joined and they've got the mic on. Please mute. I'm hearing some background noise. All right, thank you. All right, now let's talk about second part of those commandments issued by Moses. Keep therefore and do them. Look at this. For this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. These commandments are your wisdom and your understanding. Then he asks, for what nation is there so great, who has God so near unto them, as Nzambi is in all things that we call upon him? This says there's no other nation that is as close to Nzambi as we are. And what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which he sets before us this day? There is no nation that has statutes and judgments that are this righteous. Even the nations we have today, even the most successful ones in our eyes, their statutes and judgments are not close to this. They have copied, they have tried to emulate some of them, but they keep failing. They keep changing things. Today, they're saying we can have marriage between man and man. You know, they're not as righteous as these laws that we have here. Today, they're saying, you know, in this state or that state, you can murder, but in that other one, you cannot. You know, they're not as righteous as what we have. Only take heed to yourself and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, unless they depart from your heart all the days of your life. But teach them to your sons and to your sons' sons. Okay, two key things over here. This Bantu who are about to enter the promised land, they had witnessed things with their eyes. Unlike us who are just being told, who are just reading about these things, they saw the sea of reeds parted. They saw manna fall from the skies and they ate it. They saw Moses striking the rock and water coming out of it. They saw the plagues cast upon the Egyptians. They saw the firstborns of the Egyptians die, but their firstborns were let to live during the Passover. So Moses is telling them, don't you forget, because your eyes have seen these things. And don't you let these things, these commandments, depart from your heart all your life. And don't you let them depart from your families. That's why you have to teach them to your sons, and you make sure that your sons or your children teach them to their grandchildren and children. So Nzambi is saying this is for ever with us. The Bantu. Part 3, and Nzambi spake unto you out of the midst of the fire. Let me repeat that part again, because I missed it the first 5 times I read it. Nzambi spoke unto you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of the words, but saw no similitude. Only you heard a voice. Do you all realize that the Israelites, Isolele, the Bantu, had the voice of Nzambi, literally, in their ears? Not that somebody was telling them about Nzambi. No, Nzambi came up the mountain when he gave Moses the commandments, and he spoke. Nzambi spoke to the people. And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. What is this covenant? 10 commandments. You know, in my religious Christian life, I never had for once, and I was a Christian maybe for like 20 something years, maybe 25 or so. I never had once anyone tell me about the 10 commandments being part of a covenant. I have just read this week. This is a covenant between Isolele, between the Bantu, between us and Tatanzambi. And he wrote this covenant of the 10 commandments on tablets, 2 tables of stone. And Nzambi commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, again, that you might do them. Where? In the land where you go over to possess it. I did a little bit of digging. Some of these statutes, like the Sabbaths, we cannot observe them, for example, in the Northern Hemisphere, like here in the US, because of the timing. You cannot go and set up tents of tabernacles out in the winter. You'll be freezing. But in the land, you can do that because the weather allows for it. Deuteronomy 4:40. I just jumped ahead on this one, but I encourage all of you, go read chapter 3 of Deuteronomy and chapter 4. It is very detailed about this commandment. Thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee this day, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong the days upon the earth, which Nzambi giveth thee forever. Okay, let's look at some other scriptures that also talk about the commandments. Those ones were the ones I picked for today. Okay, let's see here. All right. Now, where are these actual 10 commandments? You can find them in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 1 to 22, but I also picked Exodus chapter 20. And I've put for you some signs, some numbers here on the 10 of them. So the first commandment that people refer to as the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. And then he expounds on that commandment. You shall not make unto yourselves any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Please make notes of all the images that you know that man has made, even if whether they worship them or not. But some of them do worship them, we know that. So here we're being told, don't even make it. Because Nzambi knows when you make it, it's just a matter of time before you start serving it as your God. Second one, you shall not bow down yourself to them, nor serve them. For I, Nzambi, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So don't worship them. Don't worship those idols. Oh boy, I just did a Google the other day of the word idols. You know what came up? Images of Buddha, images of what they call the Kabbalah stone, images of the cross with a statue of a white Isolele, a white Isaiah, and so many other images of a Buddha. Interestingly, the Buddha has Bantu knots, that hairstyle that we have amongst Black people. All right, let me go to the fourth one. You shall not, no, the third one, you shall not take the name of Zambi, your God, in vain. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. You know, I used to have, I have a friend, he's actually a Muslim friend. I've known him for almost 10 years now, or 20 years actually, about 15 years. One time we used to work together with this guy. And when he got frustrated, you know, people express themselves in different ways. Some people will cuss out, say some things. But if you've seen some people, they'll scream, Jesus Christ, you know? And I was perplexed because this was a Muslim guy who was screaming, Jesus Christ. So I actually challenged him and asked him, so, did you just call on Jesus Christ? And he laughed, you know, and he said, yeah, we have Isa in our scriptures, but you know, he was just a good prophet, blah, blah, blah. But that's taking the Lord's name in vain. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't. The fourth one, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's what we're doing here today. You know, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Nzambi. In it you shall not do any work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor the stranger that is within your gates. For in 6 days Nzambi made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Nzambi blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it, made it holy. Okay? Now, I really want to get into some more discussion about this, but for those of you who do not know, the Catholic Church, way back when, decided that they were going to change the day of worship, or the Sabbath day, from Saturday to Sunday. Really? You know, it's not their day, it's Nzambi's day. He created it and he hallowed it. He made it holy, you know. And then all the child religions or offspring of the Catholic Church, a lot of the Protestant churches, they followed suit. At some point, they even had conferences and they said, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to worship on the seventh day. We're going to observe the Sabbath on the seventh day, which was Saturday. But they were afraid to do it because the Catholic Church was also the Roman Empire. And this was a time of the Inquisitions, where if you did not do what the empire was saying, if they say go to church on Sunday and you did not do that, they killed you. So a lot of the Protestant churches simply protested, but did not act accordingly because they were too afraid. And even after that time passed, many of them still go on worshiping or observing on Sunday. I don't even know if they're observing a Sabbath or just hanging out. I don't know. Anyway, I won't judge them. Anyway, the next one, number 5, honor your father and your mother, that the days may be long upon the land which the Lord, which Nzambi gives you. Number 6, you shall not kill. I mean, how simple can it be? You know. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Number 8, you shall not steal. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor or somebody else. And number 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, nor covet your neighbor's wife, nor their manservant or maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. So the first 4 commandments relate to how we interact with the Most High. You know, no gods before him, observe the Sabbath, and so many other things. Don't call his name in vain. And then the last half, or the last 6, talk about how we relate with fellow man. Then there's Deuteronomy chapter 28. We'll talk about this probably next week. But many of you are familiar with this chapter. This is when the children of Israel, Solele, have just left Egypt. And Zambi asks Moses to tell them these things. Verse 1 and 2 of Deuteronomy 28. It shall come to pass, if you will hearken diligently unto the voice of Zambi, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command this day, then Zambi will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on you and overtake you, if you shall hearken unto the voice of Zambi. Those blessings are in verse 3 to 14. Verse 15 says, but it shall come to pass, if you will not hearken unto the voice of Zambi, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command you this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So again, commandments have consequences, whether they're good or bad. And here, many of you know this story, and I encourage you, if you have never read this chapter in detail, to read it in detail. Look at all those blessings from verse 1 to 14, and look at what has happened in our history as humanity. And see if you can identify those blessings. Then look at the curses from verse 15 to 68. And look at those curses and whether they have happened in history and who they have happened to. Whoever those curses have happened to consistently, those are Isolele. Those are the Bantu. Those are the children of Jacob. We will discuss Deuteronomy 28, hopefully next Sabbath, not today, but we can just touch on it a little bit. But I just wanted to introduce it here. All right, I am done. I think I've been on for about 25 minutes. So that's the presentation for today. I will stop sharing now and we can get to the discussion. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your revelations about what we have presented concerning the commandments. Oh, and welcome everybody who's here. Naibu, Mamara Dora, I saw you, Patrina, Matuzola, Terry and Tao, welcome. I think you emailed me during the week. Yes, actually, can you hear me, Terry Ann?
Yes, I can. Shalom, thank you.
Okay, I want to welcome you. Feel free to, I don't know at what point you joined us making the presentation, but at this point, I'll just let you know how we do this. We normally have a presentation for about 20 to 30 minutes, after which you're free to ask questions, you're free to give comments. We just ask that either you raise your hand using the reactions, or you type a C in the chat for comments, or a Q for questions, so that we can keep things in order. Mama Shelley, please welcome our sister Terry Ann. And Terry Ann, let me just ask you before Mama Shelley welcomes you, how did you hear about us or come across?
It was the strangest thing. It was a YouTube suggestion.
Oh, wow. Okay, and where are you dialing in from?
I'm dialing in from Florida.
Okay.
And I'm here to learn.
Okay, and where do you trace your ancestry to?
I'm originally from Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Excellent. I've been watching the World Championships. You guys are very, very good in the sprints, I must say.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with Shelly Ann Price and Sharika Jackson and all those guys. Oh my goodness, yeah, I could get into it. Anyway, Mama Shelly, please welcome our sister Terry Ann.
Hi, Terry Ann. It's so good to have you. We just welcome you here. Thank you for joining us. And that's so nice to hear. It's a YouTube suggestion. What a surprise. May they suggest many more people. Okay, well, it's good to have you though, Terry-Ann, and I pray that you will continue to join us and that you will learn a great deal from us here and that you can share your knowledge with us as well. We welcome you.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you, Elder.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. And welcome, Elder Patrick. I just saw you dialed in. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome, Brother Elder Patrick. So I just presented about commandments. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, your questions, your comments. Mama Royal daughter, time is given.
Thank you. Medium. This is so awesome. Mwanda is really what? This is more awesome. Mwanda is really what? I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, Mama Margaret, if you could mute, please.
Yeah. So you know, first of all, I wanted to say that the word commandment, you know how we talked about some trigger words that were placed in certain places that would trigger people when they when they hear it, and that word commandments, I think it was placed there for a reason. But Satan Zambi does not command anybody, although he can. He does not command. And the second thing is that he created kings. So not that we're on his level, but he never talked down to his people. And so that word commandments is one of those trigger words. But because he is Tatan Zambi and he is supreme and sovereign, everything he says is law. And so he spoke to Muntu with the understanding that they understood that everything he says is a law. Tatan Zambi did not command because he understood that we knew who and understand who he is. So everything that we hear from him is a law. He doesn't, because a command suggests that it is absolute, you know, and he gives choices. He has never said like this is absolute. He will give you a choice. He'll tell you good and bad, and then you have to choose. So that word commandment, I think, is one of those trigger words, but it meant his laws. And what laws? Tatan Zambi, the laws that Tatan Zambi gave us was the laws that he know can offset or manipulate his principles, the science with which he created the world, because that's what the commandments are. When you violate them, you violate one of the principles on which the world is based. And that is how he knew that Adam and Eve had sinned, because something was offset, you know. And so when we violate the laws, we offset the principles of Tatan Zambi. And so we will face the consequences of them because they're built in. So once you make a choice, good or bad, you will face the consequences of it. The only thing that appeals, as we know, to Tatan Zambi is repentance, true repentance. And so I was talking this morning about how when they came back from the Babylonian exile, how they brought out the books of the law. And, you know, they had only spent 70 years in Babylon, but they came back and they did not know the law. And we're in that same position. We're exactly in that same position where in order to live in Tatan Zambi's world, we have to know his laws. And I think a lot, because they have been downplayed so much, that people don't give too much credence to them. And that is why we keep violating his laws. That's why we keep running afoul, because we don't give credence to his laws. And there are many other laws that we don't even know, but we can't even keep these 10, you know? So in order to enter into this new world, our new world, we have to start working on ourselves. And the best way to do that is to read the laws and get familiar with them and start practicing them. Because he says, I am Tatan Zambi, I change not. And he said, if you follow my laws, you will live. My laws are life itself, because they enact the principles that with which he built the world. So it is life. If you want life, you will follow these laws to a T. So if these are the things that bring us life, and not only life, if we want our inheritance, if we want all the blessings that he spoke, you know, we have to follow his laws in order. Nobody has to give us those blessings. He took Isolele into the Mount Sinai and he blessed them. And that blessing is still in place. Isolele was punished. But after the punishment, he said, you go back under the blessing. But if you follow my laws, the laws are what, when you walk in line, they attract the blessings to you. So what we have to do in order to attract all the blessings is to walk in those laws. Those are the most important and integral things in our life, but we have been taught to hate them and to cast them aside like they're nothing. Tatan Zambi is not nothing. He is supreme. So whatever he speaks literally brings us life. So we have to hang on to them and follow them, because our life depends on it, literally. Ingeta.
Ingeta, thank you so much. Asante sana, Mama Royal. That was absolutely very, very helpful. You touched on a few things that triggered me. But I'll come back to them as other people comment, especially items about, you know, Tatan Zambi is sovereign. Many of us may not understand the difference between a democracy and a kingdom. In a kingdom, what the king says becomes law. In a democracy, what the president says, or what the prime minister says, is a suggestion for the parliament or the Senate to discuss and decide whether it should be a law. And then they send it back to the president or the prime minister to sign it or veto it. The Kingdom of Zambia is not a democracy. You know, it's a kingdom. And Tatan Zambi has already set the laws in place. He has already spoken them. All we got to do is keep them. All right, Brother Naibu, time is given. What's on your mind?
Ngeta, my elder, Matono Masaka, CME family. As I was listening, I just keep thinking, then if it's only the 10 commandments, I know as well Royal said there's more than that, but just looking at the 10 commandments, I know they are not grievous, but as I was reading Psalm 106, I realized as right now we are in land of our enemies, and Psalm 106, it just keeps showing how we kept going to other gods, because that's where everything's gonna start from, and that's where we're gonna go wrong and start keeping not the law of our Most High by going to serve another entity and follow their laws. So we are in kind of same situation right now. We are all in different religion, and once we come out from America, wherever we are, and we're in wilderness, we're gonna have the same thing. We're either gonna follow the Most High again, or make another modern image in the wilderness and follow the law. So Psalm 106 is kind of really interesting because it keeps showing how everything keeps starting in worshiping another image and following their laws.
Wow, Brother Naibu, you are a very wise young man. Psalm 106, please make note if you had that. If you didn't, make note, everyone, and read that. I'll just read verse 3. Blessed are they that keep judgment, and he that does righteousness at all times. Okay. Then you touched on something else. You talked about there are more laws than these 10, and yet we can't keep this 10. It's true. In fact, if anybody has studied a little bit about ancient Egypt, which is Kemet, that's what it's called. Kemet refers to dark colored or charcoal color. That's the people of Egypt, they were blacks. There are about 142. I have seen 142 laws. You don't have to go study Kemet. You can read in Leviticus. You will see many other laws or commandments. They were given by Nzambi as a guidance. Like Mama Royal Daughter said, Nzambi will not force you. You know, he'll tell you that you can go left or you can go right. I recommend you go left. But you have a free will. He gave you the free will. If you follow his recommendation, you thrive. If you don't, you're left on your own to survive. Now, something else you touched on, Brother Naibu, which I really liked. You talked about that these people, the children of Isolele, the Bantus, when they left Egypt, they were like us who may be now in a different country from maybe our country of birth, or from, we're in the diaspora, we're not in Africa. And it's very easy that we take on the culture, the gods of the countries that we are in. Okay? This is exactly what happened to the children of Israel. Because remember, when Jacob went from the promised land, Canaan, to Egypt, he went with a family. There were about 70 people. It was a family. There was no nation of Israel. So it's like you leave your country of birth or your place that you live when you're young. And then later on, you're coming back as 2 million people plus. I think the scripture says there were 600,000 men, without counting children and women. So now you have a nation. They've been living in Egypt, doing as the Egyptians told them to do. Okay? They are not a family anymore. They are bigger than a family, much, much bigger. They don't have direction as a nation. They're just this group of people that are leaving, departing Egypt, but they haven't formed their sense of identity. You can't look at them and say, oh, these are the Jamaicans. They are very good sprinters. No, they don't even know who are the sprinters. You can't look at them and say, these are the Kenyans. They're very good at marathon. No, you don't know that. You know, you can't look at them and say, oh, these are the guys who worship this God or that God. No, they don't. They don't know that. They have just seen Nzambi lead them out of Egypt. Now they're being given by Nzambi the commandments so that they forge an identity. And it is the same with us. As we begin this second Exodus back into the promised land, these commandments, these laws, these statutes this is what will forge our identity. If I meet Brother Makudi somewhere in Florida and I notice Brother Makudi keeps the Sabbath, start a conversation because that is something that he does that is similar to me. You know, that is how we forge identity as a nation. All right. Any other comments? I see Kenny. I think that is either Nick or Vincent. Go ahead. Time is given.
Hope you're all well. I just wanted to comment on two things. I don't know if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, they can hear you, Nick. Can hear you.
I think the first thing I wanted to comment about is the background of the law, the commandments. I don't want to call them commandments really, as our sister said, because I think it was put there as a term to enforce a message of servitude and slavery or something like that. But when you look at the background in which the commandments were given, first there was Moses went up to the mountain, and then there were elders, and then the elders were told to stay back. Then Moses went up, and then first before the commandments, there was the book of covenants, which mostly is overlooked. And remember, where these commandments kept? In the ark of the covenant. So there's a symbolic meaning, and there's a physical attribute to that. The meaning is that why do you need to have the covenant precede the commandment? Because the covenant defines the relationship. The covenant defines the relationship, and it goes with the theme of consistency, because the covenant was given to Abraham. So you cannot have the commandments being given to a nation which was not there in the beginning of the covenant, of the relationship. Hence the reason why the commandments were not given in Egypt. Otherwise, Pharaoh would have been part of the people receiving the commandments. But they had to be taken apart because the covenant specifically defines a relationship. So first of all, they go read out the covenant to remind people of the promises, then come back and the people agree to that, because it says, I think in Exodus, there was I think it's in Exodus 23 or 24, I can't remember, but I'll just check it out. They first go out, Moses first goes out, yeah, Exodus 24, I think so, yeah. So he first goes out, carries the book of covenants, reads it. When he goes to the mountain, after he's read to the people and they agree to obey, and not to really obey, but agree to hearken, to listen and follow. Then he comes back, and now the Lord gives him a law and the commandments for him to teach the people. You see how that message is overlooked, is for him to teach the people, not for him to command the people to. So there's an aspect of being taught, instruct, teach, so that people can learn, as opposed as not necessarily a decree, but as the first was a forced nature. There's a reason why it should be taught, and as opposed to forcing it down the people's throat. Because as you will tend to see, there's always a call to remembrance of what the Lord has done. So that when you teach people, this is something that they can internalize and appreciate how far they've come from, or how far they've come. And that's the reason why the commandments were there to be taught. So I just wanted to bring that into context, because we tend to see the Ark of the Covenant carried the tables, the tablets of stone. But we forget that without the covenant, the commandments would be lying kind of like separated, and it will not show the relationship from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. I like that you talked about a relationship that precedes the commandments, and the relationship is established in the covenant. Some of you, if you missed it, but I was presenting from Deuteronomy chapter 4, and in verse 13, it says, "And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments." Now, Moses is repeating this to the Israelites. So the covenant of the commandments is a covenant between the Israelites, or Isolele, the Bantu, and Nzambi. But it is on the back of prior covenants, like the ones with Abraham. Okay? Brother Nick is absolutely right. These were declared outside Egypt. Why? Because the Egyptians had no piece of this. They had no part in this. You know? And that's why Nzambi was declaring these commandments through Moses to the Isolele people, the Bantus, after they had left Egypt. And it was building upon other covenants, like the one that Abraham had from before. When you go outside the Bible to some of the scriptures that are not in the Bible, some of the books that are not in the Bible, you'll be amazed that people like Noah also had covenants with Nzambi. People like Noah and Shem and Seth, those guys were also given commandments. So it's like this lineage all the way down from Adam to Seth, all the way down to Abraham and Jacob. Each one of these people, each one of these nations in Isolele, you see they have a relationship, they have a covenant. And now we're at the point where we as a nation of Isolele, as Israel, we have to realize that our covenant is this one of the 10 commandments. All right. Mama Rodot, I think I see another hand. Is that another hand?
Yes.
Go ahead.
You said something very important, and I think that people should pay attention to that. When they came out of Egypt, they were just a bunch of runaway slaves. It wasn't until they went into covenant, when he gave them the laws and the covenant, that they became the nation of Isolele. But they were a mixed multitude. They were a mixed multitude. They weren't only the children of Jacob. So what made them a nation? The laws, the covenant. So the covenants, the laws are the constitution of the nation of Isolele. And so what the laws do is teach everybody to behave the same, everybody to act the same. And because, you know, we were made in his image and his likeness. So even when we don't act like him, the enemy knows, and he will still target us because we look like him. So what Isaiah did, Isaiah said, I have become. Our journey is to become Tatanzambi, in the image that he created us to be. It means that we not only should look like him, but we should adopt his character. And so our fight, our journey is to get back to that place where we look like him, we act like him. They can't tell us apart. And so Isaiah said, I have become. And he said, this is the key to the kingdom. He gave us the key. He said, when you become, he said, I and my Father are one. If you see me, you see the Father, because you can't tell us apart, because he behaved just like his Father. And so he had become, and he said, this is the key to the kingdom. You have to become. He said, seek ye first the kingdom of Tatanzambi and his righteousness, and all these things will be added onto you. So when you stay focused on becoming him, then last year you look back and say, but I wasn't this person last year. I changed, I matured, I grew. Because while you're focused on becoming him, all these things get added, all these character attributes get added onto you. The love, the unity, the grace, the mercy, and all these things till we get to look like Tatanzambi. Imagine the power that Isaiah wielded, and he said not a word. He took the beatings, he took the scourging, he took all they spat on him. He said not a word. When that man arrested him and Peter cut off the man's ear, Isaiah put it back on. He didn't have to. He could have let him bleed to death. But he would have been right. But there is a difference between right and righteous. And so we have to come beyond being right to be righteous. So we have to become the I am in order for us to get back to that place. And this is what the laws do. They bring us into that oneness with him, that we act like him. We all behave the same way. That's what the commandments do. They teach us to act the same way, so that, because he said, we're scattered to the four corners of the earth. We're all over. I'm Trini, the other one is Jamaica, and the other one is from Barbados, from the United States, from, all over the world. But when we start, and this is where we have to start, this is character building time for us. This is the fuel that we're putting in our lamp, that we start learning and behaving like he told us to in his laws, so that by the time we get to that place, we'll all be one. We could understand each other because we know the laws, we understand the laws, how they work, how he wants us to obey them. And so we act the same. There is no difference. There is no difference. What the enemy did by scattering us and trying to take our culture and trying to take our everything from us was try to destroy that oneness in us, trying to make us forget. And that's what the Bible says, make us forget who we were. But it's not possible, because Tatanzambi said he placed the kingdom inside of us. Engeta.
Woo. Thank you, Memorial daughter. Wow. Elder Patrick, go ahead. If I start talking, I might not stop. Go ahead. You'll probably say a lot of the things I was gonna say. So go ahead.
Asante sana. When we say, I think when you say karibu, we typically, if I say OD, and then you say
karibu. And hodi for the rest of the people. Hodi is like knock knock.
Yes.
And karibu means come in, or you're welcome.
Come. Yeah. Thank you so much. So thank you. Asante sana. A lot was mentioned. I missed the whole presentation. I apologize, but I would jump in on the very things that you mentioned a lot. And I think the young man, Naribu, just touched on the very key point that I really wanted to emphasize on. And Yes, he's right. We have more laws than the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments that we have are a redacted version by the Council of Nicosia. So if you go into the laws of Mahat, you see that the laws of Mahat are 42 laws. And these were, when you look at the whole laws, it's not that they were laws, they were principles of living, telling us how we should live. They were not laws, it's just a guidance of how we should live in this present day. Now, you touched on another point, Brother Mtabi, on the point of kingship. That is why democracy has never been a part of our heritage. We believe in being led by leaders. That's why we look to the leadership as a way of being led. This issue of electing is a Western democracy. That's why we battle with that. Every time we have to elect someone, we always have a battle. In Africa, you see there is a lot of corruption because the system is not the way it is for us. The vital point that the young man touched on is, as much as anybody is going to deny this, we have to go back to the point where we say history has a way of repeating itself. If you don't wake up to that, we are actually in that repetition right now. We are Isolele in the same situation right now. And if the majority of people we talk to, they say, I would never do that, what they did in Egypt when they were taken out as slaves. I would never go back to Babylon. We are actually repeating the very thing that happened. We are right in here. And I'll give you very good examples. In the beginning, when we got here to the Western world, they did not embrace our customs. They did not embrace them at all. Every time we said, no, we do it this way, or well, if that's the way you do it, then you have to leave, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be here because, and we now have started to adapt to the ways and living of this world. We have done that. We marry a white wedding. We do a white cake, a white dress, a black funeral. You demand yourself, which never existed in our vocabulary. We have adopted that way, and we are eating the same way they eat. That is following, don't be like the heathens. But we went and became them. So the detachment now is the principles of living, the commandments as they were given to us. We have to go back now and start re-employing those. And now we start thinking and saying, we are the ones who are supposed to return. But are you returning as a Westerner, or are you returning as a person with the principles of Nzambi? You're going to go back to the continent and you want to live the same way you were living here. You want to have a mansion. But soon as you step out of that mansion, there's a dash road right in front of me. There's people poor in front of me. Is that the same living you want to do? People here are so individualistic. That's why you see people here killing themselves, because they do not have anybody to consult with. We have a family unit. We don't have consultations. We have aunties and grandmothers and extended family that you need to go to and talk to them. If there's a problem in a relationship, you talk to them, they come back, they sit you down, they talk to you. Here you have a person charging money for that consultations. They do not have feelings involved in the process. We have lost our ways. So the 400 years is telling to us to say, look back. Let's look at our personal traditions which were passed to us in the laws of the commandment and start living by those principles, and we have actually found ourselves. You are very bright. All of you here can see it and say, oh no. I just had a very difficult conversation with a lady who said, came out and said, my son is gay, and I've been having a hard time dealing with it. And I said, you let it grow. You let the tree grow so big, because you said everybody here in the US is created equal based on the Constitution. But you had the laws of Mzambi, which you discarded and put the Constitution in the front. Now you're saying, oh, I don't know how to deal with it, because you let it go. You were supposed to condemn it at the time. Condemn it, and the child will learn from you. You have Dwayne Wade, who has an 8-year-old, and he says, no, the young man can make his own decision. You are a parent. You're forgetting the laws that the laws were given to us. That is exactly what we are saying. Those are the principles. So you want to take these laws now and take them back to the continent. We are wrong. Go back and revise these laws and start living them before you transport yourself back in there. They're very vital. And those are what we call Ubuntu. When we see Mama Royo, we say, I can see Ubuntu in Mama Royo, the real person inside Mama Royo. If I look at you and I don't see anything, I say you are a dead man walking. Dead person walking, because there is no soul inside of you. If you can kill someone and not have any remorse, then you don't have a soul inside of you. That's what the commandments are. Asante sana. Good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elder Patrick. Thank you. All right. You touched on us on most of the stuff I was going to talk about, but I'll just amplify it. I will amplify it, because we got to break it down to what it means in real life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example. You talked about the issue of gays, right? With that sad example about the lady and her son. For those of you outside the continent, you may not be aware of this, but the West has many times tried to pressure African countries to legalize gay marriage or gay lifestyle and things like that. Very recently, President Museveni of Uganda just came out blankly and blasted, the US and say, no, you can keep your money. If you don't want to help us, it's okay. We're not going to change our ways. Okay. Now, how do I relate this to the commandments? I think it was the last commandment that we read that talked about do not covet your neighbor's wife, or their maidservant, or their manservant, or their ox, or whatever. Okay. That's just on relationships. But if you go to Leviticus, you're going to find that there were laws that Nzambe gave against same-sex relations, right? It's not explicitly stated in those 10 commandments, but it's related to that issue of coveting. You could not have somebody having relations with their mother, or their father, or their cousin, or an animal. Those are the kind of things that you see African nations pushing back on. They tried it with Kenya, with the previous president. They tried it with the current president. They've tried it in the name of human rights in many other places. They are trying to violate the basic laws, the basic commandments. In the last month, you've probably heard in the news, there have been what they're calling coups, military coups. Most recent one was in Gabon. Before that, there was one in Niger, in West Africa. Before that, there was another one in Burkina Faso, and another one in Mali, and another one, I think, in Equatorial Guinea, or is it Senegambia, one of those. All these are former French colonies. Okay? The military has come up and realized, oh, these presidents who were put in through democracy are actually being used by the West, especially France, to access mineral resources and other resources in the country, yet the people of those countries themselves are not enjoying it. What commandment are the French violating? Thou shalt not steal. You're no longer a colonial master. What are you doing there? How can you be powering one of every 3 light bulbs in France with uranium from Niger, and 90% of the people in Niger do not have electricity? It might sound like I'm getting political, but I'm just translating the violation of the 10 commandments so that we understand what it means in practical terms, okay? In political terms, in our environment. So these countries have been violating basic commandments. And the children of Zambia, Africans, the Blacks, are waking up and realizing, no, there's something wrong about this. You cannot be, you came to me and you preached to me a gospel, but you are enslaving my ancestors at that time. Why were you enslaving them if you're following this gospel? Didn't you read these commandments? Why did you kill them? It says here you shall not kill. All right, now let's translate it for us at an individual level. I'll start with the very first commandment that we talked about. You shall have no other gods before me. And then Zambia expounded and said, do not make a graven image of anything above or here on earth or below. What are the graven images we're talking about? What are some of the graven images that might be in your house, or even perhaps on your wrist or around your neck? Do you know that in the Bible, many times over and over, Nzambe told us, our ancestors, that if we did not take care to observe these commandments, we would end up worshiping gods of wood and stone. Have we made crosses, crucifixes, and put them on buildings and put them in buildings that we call places of worship? Yeah, you can say that it's just an image, it's just a symbol of a church. Okay, then why do people kneel before it inside the building? Why do people pray in front of it? That's the first commandment. I recently saw a video of a storm in Mecca where they have the pilgrimage. The Muslims go for the pilgrimage there. It was a really bad storm. People were getting blown away and things like that. But one thing that I discovered about what they go to see in Mecca is a stone called the Kabbalah stone. Why are we worshiping? Why are people worshiping stones that cannot speak? Our ancestors, we read it, they had our Nzambe, our God, speaking. Has that cross, has that stone ever spoken to you or spoken to people in your history? No. We should move away from that. The same colonialists came to Africa and told our ancestors that they were worshiping and doing witchcraft. Told them you shouldn't have idols. Then they turned around and brought us a statue of a white Jesus. They put it in buildings and they put it everywhere. Didn't they read that first commandment? Sister Petrina, go ahead, time is given.
CME, everyone. Wow, this is so good. Yeah, I just wanted to say something about the image, the commandment about the images that you say that we must not worship. You know, like we know that we are in this system that is taking us away from these commandments. And I just wanted to say about, like astrology, people, me myself too, when I was younger, didn't know better, used to have this chain with my astrology on it. And I used to read, at the back of the magazine what it was saying. I did repent of it when I know better. But this is something that that people do, and this is a stronghold in our life. It's really a stronghold in our life. And we have to get out of that. And you say about the cross. I know I read somewhere that the cross is like oh goodness, this is French. Franc-maçon is a form of formastery or something like that. Because in the Bible,
Freemasonry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because in the Bible, in Galat, I think in Galat 3, when you say that Christ is the one that hung on the tree, right? That he was hung on a tree, it was not a cross. But they interject the cross in there and having us worshiping this cross, with this white Jesus on it. But he died and he raised. He's not anymore on that cross, but it wasn't a cross, it was on a tree that they hanged in. Yeah, that's what I just wanted to interject in there.
Oh, thank you so much, Sister Petrina. Absolutely, yes. Isaiah, Jesus, as some people refer to him, Yesu, that's how we call him in Swahili, was hung on a cross. They did crucify him, but they crucified him on a pole, a straight pole, pinned his arms at the top, nailed his fingers, and at his feet. It was not on a cross. The cross was introduced by the Romans. The word is stauros. We can discuss that another time, but yes, absolutely, you're right. They hung him on a tree, and the scriptures say that several times, at least 3 times. I'll post the scriptures here on the chat. So when the idea, the concept of a cross is introduced in history, it is by the Roman Empire. And it is actually becomes a fearful symbol. You see a cross on a shield of the army, and you're afraid of them because they're going to tell you how you need to pray, when you need to pray, when you cannot pray, and they're doing this by force. So now it has been turned around, and you'll hear phrases like this: you need to come to the cross. You need to be at the feet at the cross. Now we're worshiping and we're describing an object that has been made, a graven image, and it has become the item of worship, not Nzambe himself, not the Most High. And this is why Nzambe told us, don't even make it, because he knew once you make it, you're going to start moving towards worshiping it. Absolutely, we shouldn't do that. And then you touched on something else. You mentioned astrology and you mentioned horoscopes. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. You're opening the newspaper, you're going to the page with the horoscopes and you're saying, I'm Sagittarius, I'm Aries, I'm Leo, whatever it is, cosmology. And then you read and you say, this is what it says is going to happen about me. It's no different from going to a palm reader. or somebody who's looking into a crystal ball, or playing those games. They have some games here in America called the Ouija board, where you spin something and then it lands pointing to one area, and you pick a piece of paper, document, and you read what's supposed to be happening. It's like telling you the future of some sort. Get away from that stuff. It's worshiping other gods. It's idolatry. It's masked as many things, but it's the same thing. It's wrong. And we're doing this because this is how we forge our identity as a Solele. Mama Royal Daughter, go ahead, and then we'll wrap in prayer in 5 minutes, but I'll keep the line open for another 30 minutes before we can close. Go ahead, Mama Royal Daughter.
There's a couple things. As you spoke about the astrology, everything that Tatanzambi has given his people, the enemy has taken and corrupted it. And so Tatanzambi told us that the moon and the stars were for signs and for seasons for us. So, you know, we were supposed to be able to read them, to know when the seasons, when the months, when to plant, when to reap. The sky is Tatanzambi's canvas. Because even in Revelation, he tells us, he gives us sign in the moon and the stars and stuff like that. So, but we lost that gift because we've come so far away from Tatanzambi. I think it was the tribe of Issachar that could read the stars. You know, there's, I think, the Dogon tribe. They are masters at reading the skies and the stars and whatever. But we lost that gift, and may Tatanzambi restore it to us. But when you spoke about the LGBTQ agenda, in Leviticus 20, I think covers, you know, that a man shouldn't lay with a man, and his mother, and with his all those laws. And Tatanzambi said they are an abomination. That's even a stronger word than a law. You know, a violation. It's an abomination to him. And so he said, these things defile your land. So what they want to get into the land and get our presidents and our prime ministers, our leaders, to speak over it so they can defile our land. They tried everything that they could to mess with our land, but that's Tatanzambi's land, so they can't. But if they get our leaders to speak it, then, you know, they can't curse us, but we can curse ourselves. That's Tatanzambi's law. Because Isolele is blessed by Tatanzambi, and who Tatanzambi blessed, no man can curse. And so if we speak it over the land, then it will defile the land. And that's what they really want to do, defile the land. And, you know, in Deuteronomy 27, it talks about cursed is a man that moves another man's landmark. And that's what colonization is. See, they went into a land that isn't theirs. And so they enacted that principle. And when judgment comes, this judgment that we see is for these violation of these principles that they brought these curses on themselves. But I think I said this before, that Tatanzambi said to us, wherever you go, wherever the soles of your feet hit, I have given to you. So that is Tatanzambi's way of recolonizing the world, because they thought they were doing something to us by putting us on ships or taking us in chains all over the world. But it was Tatanzambi's way of recolonizing, because he said, wherever you go, once your feet hit that ground, I have given it to you. And so we're seeing that change happening right now, where the curse that they brought upon themselves is coming to bear now. And so he said that his government will be a world government because his people were all over the world. Engeta.
Thank you, Mama daughter. I'll come back for you to do a closing prayer in case somebody has to leave so they can leave. But before I do that, I did mention after my presentation earlier that next week we will talk about Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 has the blessings and the curses. And Mama daughter just talked about one of them, one of the curses that our ancestors, the ancestors of Israel, Isolile, the Bantu, they violated those commandments we're talking about. One of the curses is in verse 36 of Deuteronomy 28. It says, Nzambi, or God the Most High, will bring to you and your king, which you shall set over thee, unto a nation. So he'll bring you and the king that you have set over yourselves to a nation which neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods of wood and stone. Okay? In 1884, there was what was called the Berlin Conference. And there were 7 European nations plus the US. And they sat up at a table and they decided, let's draw lines and divide up Africa to the way it is today. They say, the British, you go to East Africa. The Dutch, the Germans, you go to Southern Africa. The Portuguese go to West Africa, to Angola and places like that. They divided for themselves this place. Those are the nations which were set up over us. Why were they set up over us? To colonize us? Because we violated the commandments. We are still recovering. We are still disentangling ourselves from these nations. I'd like to know, Sister Terry-Ann, what do you think so far? I'm sure you've had a lot of words that you don't know what they mean. Do you have some questions on what those words are? Or have you had them before?
Shalom. I haven't heard the Swahili before. I mean,
Okay.
I've done some reading in the past, but I have to get used to the term Tata and Zambi. I've never heard it before, to refer to the Most High.
Okay.
And you know, I'm encouraged by what I hear, and I definitely want to learn more. Is there a should we learn Swahili? And if so, what would be a good instruction, a course that would, you know, teach someone like me who knows absolutely nothing in Swahili to at least learn more?
Okay. So with regard to Tatanzambi, that word comes from Congo, and the Congo area. For some of us, we consider that to be ground zero for the children of Israel or Israelites. Some people who are in this group are also part of another group. It's called Bantu Tokoista Youth. You can find it online. Bantu Tokoista Youth. I'll type that out in the chat. And there they use a lot of Kikongo words. So that's where Tatanzambi comes from. That's the name of the Most High. With regard to Swahili, I created this group with the help of everybody here to try and reach a lot of the people in Eastern Africa. So like from Egypt all the way down to South Africa, eastern half of Africa. And in East Africa, Swahili is spoken by, I think, over 200 million people now, stretching from like Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, all the way even to Congo, on the Atlantic side. So that's why we call the channel Amkeni-Bantu. It means wake up is Amkeni. And Bantu is, of course, the children of Israel. the Israelites. Somebody has posted that Tokoista Youth have an app that teaches Kikongo language. So you can look that up also. And Mama Royal Daughter, if you have a link to that app, just share it to me and I can pass it on to her or something like that. We actually also have a WhatsApp, not a WhatsApp, but a Telegram group for this group that we share messages on during the week. If you want, you can let me know and I can send you an invite. You can join if you want to. As to learning Swahili, there are many apps out there. There is YouTube channels. I'll just say Google them and bounce it off of me or somebody else here. We'll tell you if we think it's a good one. But should you learn Swahili? Should you learn Kikongo? You know, it's really up to you. It doesn't hurt to learn a new language. That's good. But I advise everybody who's on this channel and who hears my voice, maybe on this channel, especially those in the diaspora who were born outside the continent, to begin tracing your roots. If you need to go take some ancestry, DNA tests, find out where did you come from? Where do your parents or ancestors come from? You know, was it Ghana? Was it Kenya? Was it wherever it is? Find that out. Then maybe tailor what you want to learn based on that. And even go a step further and make plans to visit those countries that you're from and get to know the people. That's part of the Exodus, the second Exodus of going back. All right. I hope I've answered some of your questions, Sister Terry Ann.
Yes, you have. I actually did some tracing, and I am what you call, how would you say, a melting pot.
Okay.
All over Africa.
Okay.
I do have, I mean, I have some European ancestry in the minority, but
okay.
As far as Africa, and it's my majority,
yeah.
And it is all over West Africa.
Oh,
so
okay.
West and Central Africa. So I don't have a specific tribe. I don't know. Okay. I haven't gone that far, but my majority so far is Nigeria. And that's, but just virtually West and Central Africa are represented in my DNA. So.
All right. Excellent. That's good. That's really good. Yeah, that's good. That's very, very, very good. It always helps when you find out all that information, you know. I know I was born in Kenya, but I've not done the DNA tracing, but you know, the common history we have is that all Bantus came from the Congo area, which is like Gabon, Angola, DRC, all the way stretching to like almost Kenya, you know, Uganda, Burundi, and places like that. Yep. All right. Any other questions? We still have about 15 minutes. Questions, comments regarding this commandments that we were discussing today. Anything new? Anybody learn anything new today?
Let me also add, Brother Mtawi, that the word Congo, as we call it, is really, it's the whole map, as we call it. Congo was not specifically to that region, was only the whole region. And what people need to understand is Africa was a place of refuge for us. It has always been a place of refuge. We were running away from we were running away after being defeated. And we were coming down from Kemet, coming down to the south. And this is the land that we were said to be, we will be well protected in that area. So the Bantus were now starting to gather in different areas. Where they remained, they stayed there. That's why you have Tanganyika, which is Tanzania, which is the start of a new nation. It was the Bantus that started that, and then they ended up being in the area that they are in now, like the southern part of Africa. But it was really a way of trying to run away from when we were being persecuted. And the people that gave us away, the people that really gave us away, unfortunately, this is sad to hear. If anybody is a Moor out there, a Moor, the Moors are the ones that gave us away, because the Moors were mixed, and so they were able to infiltrate us and go. And we thought because they were black, they were one of us. So they were able to get in, and they connived with the Arabs and said the people of Isolele are in these lands over here. That's how we were the last people to be colonized and enslaved after we had escaped that point. So Congo was, when we say Congo, we spell it with a K, was the whole region. And that's why the main language of Congo, Kikongo, is another dialect of the Bantu language, which is your dialect in Swahili, our dialect in Nyanja, Ngoni, Zulu. Those are all dialects of that essence. Yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
That's very good, Elder Patrick. You know, some of that information is priceless. They don't even teach that out here. We know. So for us who grew up in Africa, they taught us some of this information in elementary school and high school, but it was part of our curriculum, history curriculum. But out for the people outside the continent, they don't have a clue about that. So it's very good when you share those kind of insights. Mama Shelley, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Elder. I just wanted to say, I was looking at Deuteronomy 28 this morning, and I was amazed when you read from it. I thought, oh my, Wanda is really one. And I was looking at verses 9 and 10, where it speaks about, let me just read it quickly. Can I just read it quickly? Okay. It says, the Lord shall establish thee a holy people unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God and walk in his ways. And all the people of the earth shall see thee, that thou art called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of thee. And that struck me. I've read this chapter before, but it's like the lights turned on with that. And I thought, Mighty Father, this is really what we have to do. We have to come back to him and his commandments. And like you were saying earlier, when you said, it's not just any commandments, it's his commandments. And that was so true. When I was thinking about it, I said, Father, it's not just the commandments of the land. It's not just any commandments. It's yours. Your commandments that you gave us, your statutes that you gave us, your laws. That's what we have to come back to. We're not just coming back to being good. We're coming back to what you have established. And you said, when we come back to that, you're going to reestablish us to be a holy people unto yourself. And it was, and then in verse 10, when it says, and the people of the earth shall see the name by which we are called, and they shall be afraid of thee. I said, my gosh, that is so like Tatanzambi. It reminded me of in the book of Joshua when Jacob's sons were fighting those battles against the Amorites. And when they were going into the first battle, I love those chapters with the battles. When they were going into the first battle, Isaac was praying for them because they'd asked him to pray for us. And he prayed for them, and he said, he asked Tatanzambi to let the fear of his grandsons be upon the enemies. And, you know, it says Tatanzambi heard that prayer and he answered it. And these were like the Jacob's children and the little army that they could gather together. There were 112 men against, when the servant had gone to look, because I think Judah, one of them, sent them servants, go and look and see how many of the army we have to fight. And when he came back, he said they're like the sand of the sea. You know, it's like 112 men against people like the sand of the sea. I mean, like, you know, it's just like, wave your white flag and give up now. But they said, oh no, Tatanzambi is with us. And he put the fear of 112 men on that great army. And they retreated. That first battle, they retreated. They said, no, we can't fight them. They were too afraid. They went back. And it's the second one that they came back. They were terrified again. They were terrified again. But then they said, if we turn back again, they're going to laugh at us. And the other nation's going to laugh at us. So they had to fight. And of course, you know, well, you all could read the book of Joshua and see what happened. But, you know, and this is where the Tatanzambi wants to bring us again. You know, he wants to bring us again into that position where the nations will have fear when they see us. And like Mama Royal said, they're not just seeing us how we look now. They're going to be seeing Tatanzambi in us. They're going to be seeing a renewed us. They're going to seeing a different people, you know, and this is where Tatanzambi wants to bring us. And we cannot get there unless we follow his commandments. We cannot get there unless we submit to him. We cannot achieve what he wants to give us until we are submitted to him and follow his commandments, not the commandments they taught us, not the ones they taught us in the church, because those ones twisted, those ones kind of funny. Not them. We got to come back and learn the commandments that the Tatanzambi gave us. Those are the ones we have to follow. And then we will come in to all that he wants us to come into. This struggle, this, you know, right now, you know, they can crush us when they want to, you know. I mean, in the US, they're just driving down the road and a policeman could just pull you over and all the beating starts for nothing. You know, those days are going to be past when we come back to the commandments. Those days, you know, there's a time limit on that. And the time limit is up to us. When are we going to submit? When are we going to come back? When are we going to return to our Tatanzambi? When are we going to do his will? And a whole new world begins for us. And one other thing I wanted to say quickly, when you were talking about going back into the land, I can't remember who said it, but they were saying, when we go back into the land, we can't take these Western ways. And it's so very true. I was praying about that some long time ago, a few years ago, and I remember I felt in my spirit, we cannot go back into the land with these ways that we have learned. We cannot, especially those of us who have been born in the diaspora. You know, we didn't have the privilege of living in the land and coming over here. We were born here. We grew up here. We learned all their awful ways. We learned them all. They're like a part of our living, our daily lives. And, you know, it was like the Spirit was saying to me, all of that has to go. You have to drop off all of that. None of that can come into our land. None of that can come into my land. It's a holy land. It's a holy land. And I was remembering something I'd heard where it said the land will spit you out, you know. And I said, Father, your land is really holy. I mean, you told your people when they were coming out of Egypt don't take those evil ways into the land that you're giving them. It was okay for Egypt, but not when you come here, not when you get into this land. So we can't go back to the land with all this rubbish. Sorry to say, if I don't offend anybody, but we really can't go back with all that. We got to drop off all that. We got to forget all the ways. We got to forget all the customs, all the things that, you know, we learned that are wrong. We got to leave it behind because we can't carry that back, because we don't want that land after we've longed for it to spit us out. No, we want to be received back. So that's all I want to say. Ingeta.
Oh, thank you so much, Mama Shelley. Memorial daughter, I'm coming to you, but Mama Shelley, you're absolutely right. That's why I encouraged everybody, spend this coming week reading Deuteronomy chapter 28. Look at each verse one at a time and look at history. Look at the present, the past. Look at what's been happening. You will see all those things that are mentioned there in the scriptures. You know, we're talking about the commandments, and Mama Shelley mentioned the book of Joshua. Mama Shelley and I were reading the book of Joshua almost concurrently. And in the book of Joshua, Moses is actually made to be the king over the people of Cush. Okay, this was before he had the burning bush experience. But anyway, after he is king, he then has the burning bush experience, and he goes to Pharaoh and he tells Pharaoh, at least let the people get a break, let them rest. And he tells Pharaoh, let them rest on the seventh day. So Pharaoh agreed. What Pharaoh didn't realize was that Moses was requesting a strategic tactic. And in the scripture in the book of Joshua, it says, because the Most High had heard the cries of the people of Israel, he made Pharaoh agree. So now you have a situation where the children of Israel are slaves, but by default, they are observing the Sabbath. And that is when everything started turning around. They were just observing one commandment. Okay? Now, why am I sharing this? So that you, as a leader of yourself, as a leader of your household, as a leader of your community, can go and request the Pharaoh, can go and communicate to the Pharaoh of the pharaohs of your community, and make these strategic changes where possible. Go and say, can we rest on the Sabbath? Can we pull down these images? Can we, stop this or start doing this? That's making the strategic leadership moves for the rest of Isolde. Pray that the Mwanda, the Holy Spirit, the Rom Takatifu, shows you where. Mama Royal daughter, go ahead.
Sister Shelley's point, it says in Ezekiel 20 and verse 35, and it says, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you face to face, as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So will I plead with you, Sister Tanzambi, and I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of covenant, and I will purge out from among you the rebels and them that transgress against me, and I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn, and they shall not enter into the land of Isolili, and you shall know that I am Tatanzambi. So that's exactly what Mama Shelley was speaking to, that not only will he says he will weed out the rebels from among us. those going back to the land. But he said those that are in the land, he will take them out. They're not, so he's not even playing. And as to what she was saying, he's not accepting anything less than those that really want to serve him in spirit and in truth. And so that's the work that we have to do now. And that's why the commandments, are so important. The laws are so important, because we have to make ourselves ready, or else he will be one of the weeded out ones. We don't want to get that far and then go back. But there's something that Tatan Zambi's laws are absolute, because he's sovereign and supreme. But they don't teach you that. They teach you that the law of the land is absolute, and you can't, you can lose your life for violating the laws of the land. But they don't teach you that regardless of what you do, if you violate Tatan Zambi's laws, you will get into problems. And the thing is that they teach Tatan Zambi's laws in school. What they teach for science is really the laws of Tatan Zambi. And then they name it after their fathers. You know what I'm saying? Is Maslow's this one's law and that one law and the other one. They name it after their fathers. They know how to honor their fathers and mothers. But they don't tell you that it is Tatan Zambi's laws. Whatever they invented, they call it a theory, because a theory has never been proved and they can't prove it. So they'll call it a theory, and then they'll teach it to you like it's a law, But what Tatan Zambi invented, Tatan Zambi's laws, they teach it in school as science. And they take the credit for it because they get paid for it. And then they tell you, my father, this one discovered that. My father, this one discovered that. Like they all discovered. Where'd you discover it from? How did you come by it? It had to be existing before you even discovered it. And so, that's because they're absolute. And we have to follow these laws. These are the laws that we violate every day. You keep the commandments and you think you're keeping the commandments, but you violate the laws and principles of Tatan Zambi every day because we don't know. We don't know them. Ingita.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ingeta. Mama Tuzola, I don't know if you can hear me, but would you be able to close for us in prayer in a minute or two? Okay, and then also if you have some comments, I'd love to hear. I know you've just been writing and taking notes. You have a lot of wisdom with you. But before I come to you, yes, Terian, I see your message. Just send me your number and I'll send you an invitation to join the Telegram group. And also, Mama Royal daughter, you mentioned something about discoveries, science discoveries. There are many discoveries that happened in what we call today Egypt, Kemet. And they were done by our ancestors. Okay, I'll be posting some videos on the Telegram group about some of those discoveries. And you'll see that they were done by Africans, and then later on, the colonizers tried to claim that they discovered these things. And then they teach us in school and they tell us, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Hippocrates, they discovered these things. No, they were actually told about it and they confessed and wrote in books and said, no, I learned this in Kemet. And I found that 4,000 years before I went to Kemet, there was a guy called Imhotep, and he's the one who discovered this and that. So it's good to get this knowledge, this information, so that when we talk about it, we come from a point of knowledge, because that's how we're going to convince people and explain to people these things. The other thing I want to mention is this. Some of you may have been wondering, okay, are we keeping these laws and these commandments? Don't we have a New Testament, New Covenant? You know, I thought the law was, you know, the Old Testament stuff. Well, we'll talk about that next week as well. You'll be surprised. Let me just put it that way. You'll be surprised. But we'll talk about that next week. We'll show you some scriptures on what Isaiah, Jesus, Yesu, whatever you want to call him, said about the commandments. You know, and then we'll leave it up to the Spirit of the Most High to lead you on what you think you should do or not do. But we'll talk about that as well next week. All right. Brother Nick, I see your comments. He said about idolatry, the first commandment prohibits the worship of idols and putting anything above the Most High. In a modern lifestyle, materialism, consumerism, and obsession with celebrities or wealth can be seen as forms of idolatry. Brother Nick, you know, in Kenya, there's a saying in social media where they say, you're spoken for 10 men. So I'll say, yes, you're spoken for 10 men. Thank you. That is absolutely on point. Mama Machuzola, give us some comments and then close for us, please.
Madonna Masaka, Elder, and everybody. This has been very good teaching. You know, when you was teaching and speaking about the covenant, how the covenant defines the relationship, I was thinking, oh my goodness, the church needs to hear these teachings so they can so they can teach people the right way. Because, you know, what you said was, I don't know who said it, but they said, when you see, how do you know who is your people, who your people? One of the ways that you know who your people are, this scripture says you will know a tree. I'm trying to start my video, my apologies. You will know a tree by the fruit it bears. So if you see the tree and it's hold on, my deal ain't working right, y'all. I'm sorry. If you see the tree and the tree is bearing bad fruit, that's not your people. You know, if your people are worshiping idols, that is not your people, because that is not what you're supposed to be doing. If you see people keeping the samba, practicing the culture, that tree looks like your tree because it's bearing good fruit. It's bearing fruit that you identify with, you're familiar. You know that fruit. You know that it's according to the laws of Tatanzambi that you keep his way. You know, that you love your brother, you love your sister, you look out for them, you uplift them, you keep the samba, you don't steal from them, you don't charge them interest, you don't do all these things, you know, that we see the Gentiles do. And so when we see those things are identifying our people for us. They're identifying us. They're a picture of us unto ourselves. So yeah, Matano Masaka, I love this. And I believe that the churches need to be able to know these things and teach these things to the people, because some of our people are still, you know, in the churches, and there are some churches that are trying to learn. You know, there are some that are trying to learn, and they will teach, you know, if the Most High wake them up. I'm not talking about, guys, I'm not talking about these churches that's talking about come and bring your tithe and offering, and if you want the blessings, turn around 10 times, high five your neighbor. I ain't talking about these people, no. Run, run, run fast. But, there are people out there that are, as I said, you can tell by what these people are trying to do, what they're saying, what they're practicing. That's the fruit, Let no man deceive you. So Matana Masaka, I enjoyed this teaching very much. I can't hear you.
Sorry, go ahead and close for us. Thank you.
Okay, Matana Masaka. Katan Zambi, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for all that you have done for us. Thank you for the Mwanda Velela that you sent into our midst to sit down with us, to comfort us, to lead us, to guide us into all truth. Father, we thank you for the truth because it is your truth, the truth that will make us free from the lies. The truth will make us free. The spirit of truth makes us free from the gospel of colonization, Father. We don't want any more of this gospel of colonization. We want the truth, Father. We want to be led by the true Mwanda so that we can be a light to the world, so we can be salt in the earth, salt and light to the people that sit in darkness, that they also may see light in us and be drawn to that light, Father. We want to affect the generations behind us so that the generations behind us can affect the generation behind them. And so that the generations that will come forth, Father, will walk in true light and not be colonized, Father. They will not be colonized because we will be light that help them to see light and walk in light, and they can teach their children and their children as you have commanded us to do. So, Father, we say thank you for raising up Matavi, Elder Matavi, to do what he's doing. Father, may you strengthen him. May you continue to build him. May you continue to teach him. May you continue to send your Mwanda to speak with him, to sit with him, to teach him, to elevate him so that he can educate the people far and wide, Father. We want our people to be unified. We want our people to come together in true unity, Father. And it is only by your spirit that this will happen, Father. But we want to do your part, our part. As your ambassadors here in the earth, we have a part to do. And we want to do our part, Father. We want to work with you and we want to work for you. Sirieto kukozulu, yambula zinadiakudea zikiswanga. Ikentino kiakukiza, olu sololo wakalabangama, ovasini kukozulu. Utubana diakwetu kwalungu kelungu, ndololo kamasumu mietu, ndololo katulolo kangata tuyetu. Utufiri kumuna pukumuni, utuvluzo munambi, kariaku ekentino, ingolo, nkembo, ngwele, ambu, ngeta. Amen.
Amen.
Anna, thank you so much, Mama Matuzola. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Mama Margaret, Mama Royal Daughter, Brother Makudi, Brother Naibu, Mama Tuzola again, Mama Shelley, Sister Petrina, Sister Terianne, Brother Nick. You all have a blessed the rest of your Sabbath day. Enjoy yourselves. Take care out there and keep studying. Let's see you next week. Deuteronomy 28.